Welcome back to NewsWire. Matthew Waters is with us. He's ready for a summer of Philadelphia Phillies baseball because the 76ers got eliminated yesterday. But Matthew, it's okay, man. I mean, more time, to spend with the family and going on trips. I mean, you really didn't need to be watching 76ers games in May and Memorial Day in June, right? I mean, this gives you more time.
I was hurting enough, Craig, and now you're just really piling on. It is what it is, but yeah, it was tough.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, somebody I'm looking at right now on this show did pile on when the Phillies beat the Marlins in the playoffs. I don't know who that could have been. Maybe it was Michael Cohen. I don't remember. But anyway, let's get to our
I don't
stories
remember.
here. It wasn't you. Probably shorter hair you had at the time, by the way. Let's go to Legal
Yeah.
Sports Report and talk a little bit about the latest on some of these earnings calls. We'll start off with Rush Street Interactive and a surprising result here, I think, for BetRivers. Tell us more.
BetRivers did great. Rush Street did great. They reported great earnings. They raised their adjusted EBITDA guidance. I mean, it went every way it was supposed to go for BetRivers, which is, you don't always know with BetRivers because they are one of those companies that is comfortable with keeping their market share smaller, right? They're just not interested in trying to market and promo the same way the bigger guys do. And so they take their little slice of each market that they're in and they work as hard as they can to make it profitable. And they did a fantastic job of that in the first quarter. Now, the most interesting part about this Rush Street call, if you remember a couple weeks ago, we had a report from Bloomberg that not only was Rush Street available to be bought, but that they were pitching themselves to DraftKings. Now, they are a publicly traded company, so management is always limited in what they can say, especially when it comes to something like this. But it was notable that the CEO, Richard Schwartz, he didn't deny that that was happening. He noted, as substantial shareholders ourselves, meaning the management team, he said, we're fully aligned with shareholders. We are always looking to make shareholder value, and we will continue to evaluate all opportunities. He was also asked why not just open up like a formal process if you're thinking about selling yourself. And he said, I can't respond to that question in a public setting. So there are things going on behind the scenes over at BetRivers. And look, putting out these great numbers, it only helps, right? Delaware is turning into a bigger market than they thought it could be. They're getting more out of their parlay product than they originally thought they could. So BetRivers is in a great place right now, and their stock is up, which is terrific if they're thinking about getting bought, because they really were undervalued for a little while, and they probably still are a little undervalued now, but the stock is finally up, and things are looking pretty positive for Rush Street right now. Now, I don't know who is going to be involved in buying them. We talked before. I think if DraftKings bought them, it might be a little redundant. Maybe they would buy them to get the database and keep it from someone else. I don't know. But we're going to be keeping an eye on Rush Street and seeing what happens. They're definitely an attractive target right now.
Yeah. Investors probably feeling pretty good about getting that quarterly report. On the flip side, Penn teams up with ESPN Bet. The ads ensue. ESPN says all the right things about their quarterly report, but the data shows different. So what's the disconnect here? Is this just false optimism?
Craig, I'm not sure. And it's so easy to say, it was the first full quarter of earnings. And, in a year from now, we could be laughing about this report. But in a year from now, we could also be saying, oh my God, how did it get worse? It just is surprising what Penn reported yesterday. They marketed more than they wanted to. They had to spend more than they wanted to. And they didn't get anything for it. I mean, they have more players, but they lost wallet share. And Penn can say as much as they want that it's all the parlay product, and maybe it is all the parlay product. We don't know. But it's interesting because when you look at some of these hold percentages, the Masters, March Madness, Super Bowl, none of those really went great for anybody. But DraftKings, they still closed the quarter with a 9.5% hold. ESPN Bet had a 4.4% hold. So it shows how these parlay products can definitely help give you a stable foundation when it comes to the big swings like this. But man, I just don't know about ESPN Bet at this point, Craig. This is not what we wanted to see for sure. And now Penn stock is at its lowest point since right when the COVID-19 closure started happening. So it's not looking great for Penn. What the tough part is for Penn, Craig, is that it's not easy to guide on what your marketing costs are going to be and what you may lose, because marketing is something that you have to be dynamic with. You have to be able to shift when you see an opportunity. You should be pulling back when it gets a little too expensive. And I saw one of the analysts, he put it perfectly. He said, this is difficult to do. Not sure why they're giving this, because they gave guidance for the second quarter too. So now we have another target to watch for Penn, that if they miss, it's just going to be more people upset, wondering what's happening. So yeah, we're only a couple months into it now for ESPN Bet, Craig, but it's tough sledding out there for Penn, and I don't know exactly how it turns around. We have to give them more time, of course. Definitely have to give them more time, especially if the tech team is saying, look, once we get these parlays up and going, and once we get some integration with the ESPN app, until we see all of that, and until we see it fail, we can't say that it's failed, but not great coming out of the gate here, Craig.
Yeah, and I would say that you're right. More time is needed for this, but again, football season is coming, and they're going to have to show some success during that time. I mean, because then there'll be no excuse. Speaking of which, the story of the spring, probably the story of the summer, would be state by state, each legislative group taking a look at things and saying, hey, look, college football is coming. Do we want to allow people to bet on props from our student athletes? I think that's the next story here, Matt, for the next 3-4 months, is to state by state who allows it, who doesn't. There has not been a state to come out and say we want to keep it. And now we have another state saying we want to bid it farewell. Which one is this?
Yeah, this is North Carolina, and it's interesting, Craig, because obviously if they wanted to do this, they could have done it earlier in the year when these things were being talked about and they were still crafting regulations and whatnot. But what's interesting about this bill that was filed in North Carolina, I'm not sure if there is a disconnect, or if maybe the sponsor just wants to go heavier than other states. But this wouldn't just be banning player props in North Carolina; it would be banning all college props. So there would be no, H1 over betting, nothing like that. And that's interesting, because you do see some states saying, we don't want to take any bets on what an individual player might do. And you can even stretch that argument to say, well, okay, we don't want to take bets on what, the over on the passing yards might be, because that comes down to one player, the quarterback. I can understand that too. But once you start taking out, first half overs and that kind of stuff, that seems unnecessary to me. And again, I don't know if maybe it was just a misunderstanding from the people in North Carolina. I'm not sure. Now, we don't think the bill is going to pass anyway. It's a Democratic bill. It doesn't have the support of Republicans in North Carolina. But yeah, we're going to see more of this. We're going to hear more about this. Ohio already said they're not going to do it. Louisiana said they're not going to do it. So we have more states coming out and saying no more college player props. And look, they were proven to be a small part of the market. Ohio said it was like 1 point something %. So it's not huge at the end of the day. But Craig, we have to remember that if there are people that want to bet these and it's not available in the legal states, they're still going to bet them. They're just going to go offshore.
Yeah, no, and that's really the key, is to keep it safe, but at the same time, figuring out maybe some happy medium here. All right, Matt, great to catch up with you. Thanks for coming on NewsWire. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, sir. Take care.